Alcorn Clean Fuel welcomes you to this facility. This training identifies acceptable conditions and behavior during on-site work activities. The following site safety, health, and security requirements have been established to prevent accidents, to mitigate hazardous situations, and to protect all occupants from injury or illness. We require all occupants to follow the mandatory policies and directives contained in this program. They are the minimum requirements to be met at all times by all contractors, subcontractors, suppliers, vendors, and delivery personnel on site. Please pay close attention so the requirements that could affect you while on site are understood. Prior to starting a new job, your qualified representative must provide us with copies of your written safety and health program, which must conform to the Minnesota AWARE Act. In addition, you must supply a copy of your Hazardous Communications Right to Know program. Before beginning work, all on-site workers must participate in a formal site safety orientation involving viewing this video and discussing the content and questions with our on-site supervisory staff. Also, before work begins, your qualified representative must inspect the job site with a member of Alcorn's management staff. Inspection items include egress in and out of the job site area, equipment and/or material storage issues, identification of hazards adjacent to the work area, emergency evacuation routes, including identifying the outside meeting area and the inside severe weather shelter. All visiting workers must be trained and qualified to perform the work they are assigned. They must be familiar and trained in safety, health, security, and environmental requirements relating to the work being performed. Be prepared to provide proof of qualifications or credentials and maintain a daily log that includes the following: company name and individual worker names, time individual workers entered and departed the property, front office and control room sign in and sign out histories. Visitors should initially sign in at the reception counter in the front office building. Always travel at or below the posted speed limit. Driving slow is especially important when sharing the road with rolling stock, trucks, or during winter months when roads are slippery and snow piles can obstruct your view. Follow posted vehicle and pedestrian traffic control signs and road markings. Park in the lot on the east side of the office building unless you have a service vehicle with tools that must be regularly accessed during work. Then, authorized on-site parking is allowed in designated areas. Unless first authorized by our site supervisory staff, do not park your vehicle where it will block traffic, fire exits, access to emergency or key process equipment. Any vehicle with serious motor or component problems could be moved or removed from the site. Remember, our right to inspect all vehicles and persons on site extends to containers like a toolkit, job box, or cooler. Alcorn reserves the right to suspend all or portions of a contractor's operation when we feel personnel or occupants, environmental safeguards, or property are endangered due to unsafe work practices or unreasonable hazards. Our authorized work permit issuer will decide if work permits are needed for a job. Permits are usually required for the following work exposures: lockout-tagout, confined space entry, hot work. Specific work permit situations will be addressed in detail later in this program. If process changes are needed, our plant staff will make them. Under no circumstances should a contractor ever change the placement of pumps, valves, or any key process equipment without the authorization and direction of our site supervisory staff. We expect visitors to follow these restrictions while on site. No harassment of any kind. No fighting, bullying, or unruly behavior. No horseplay or practical jokes. No gambling, fraudulent or illegal activity. No consumable alcohol, illegal or intoxicating substances. No drug use or drug paraphernalia on site. No firearms, weapons, ammunitions, explosives, or incendiary devices. No smoking on the property except in specifically designated areas. No cell phones, not intrinsically safe cameras, tools, or electrical equipment use. No camera or video recording without written permission. No loitering in or around the plant control room. No circumventing site or equipment securement barriers or locks. No entry to the rail yard, DDGS, and grain storage areas without prior authorization. Violators of these restrictions could be immediately escorted off the site. Contractors are expected to provide the proper attire and personal protection equipment to employees working on their behalf on site and to enforce proper usage at all times. Acceptable daily attire and PPE is as follows. Hard hats, clean and undamaged. Eye protection, ANSI approved. A face shield for acid and welding work. Hearing protection in areas with loud noise exposure. Protective gloves as needed. Steel toe boots with slip and puncture resistant soles. Water resistant boots as needed. Pants, no shorts. Clothing next to the skin should be 100% cotton or chemical and or heat resistant material. A respirator or dust mask may be necessary when working with ammonia, sulfuric acid, caustics, or any chemicals or material with vapors or dust, airborne inhalation potential. During winter months, wear boots with slip-resistant soles to prevent slip and fall incidents, especially when using stairs, catwalks, or ladders. Also, wear cold weather coveralls as needed. We expect posted instructional and safety awareness signs to be honored inside and outside the plant. Properly label and mark all barrels, drums, totes, and containers. Also, never leave unlabeled containers lying around. Always follow good housekeeping practices. Pick up after yourself, keeping work, process, and common areas inside and outside the plant free of unnecessary clutter from equipment, tools, materials, or debris. Always watch out for trip hazards like floor drains, grates, and hoses. Keep all exits and emergency equipment unobstructed and accessible at all times. At the end of each workday, work areas must be cleaned of all trash, mechanical scrap, and debris. For waste disposal, please separate carbon and stainless steel. Do not pour liquids or put containers with residue still inside into dumpsters. Take them with you off-site and properly dispose of them. It is not acceptable to leave behind equipment, containers, or materials without first getting prior authorization from our site supervisory staff. Make sure to properly cover all drum and container openings with a bung, faucet attachment, or clip-down cover or lid so liquids remain properly enclosed and uncontaminated. Spills should be immediately cleaned up and reported to the control room and or the site safety manager. Spill kits equipped with absorbents are located throughout the plant. They are available to use for cleaning up minor spills under the guidance of our on-site staff. Major spill cleanup requires the involvement and direction of our site supervisory staff. Airborne dust and debris producing operations inside buildings must be adequately contained and ventilated to minimize the impact on surroundings. Coating, cleaning, grinding, sanding, or sandblasting operations producing airborne debris should be done away from air handling equipment and fresh air intake vents. Always be aware and prepared for possible dust asphyxiation or engulfment exposures from site work activities and operations. If you need to bring potentially hazardous liquids, powders, or gases on site to complete a project, discuss it with our supervisory staff and acquire written permission from the plant manager. You must have an updated MSDS accompanying each material. Make sure you and your staff are prepared to work safely around potentially hazardous processed liquids, powders, and gases usually used and maintained on site, like anhydrous ammonia, chlorine, sulfuric, phosphoric, and sulfamic acids, caustics, and hazardous bases like sodium hydroxide, corrosive inhibitors, boiler treatment chemicals. Also, be careful around ethanol, fuel, propane, and acetylene compressed gas. We maintain current MSDSs on site for your use upon request. They are located in the top drawer of the file cabinet in the control room, as well as on the computer, and where our more hazardous chemicals are regularly used. We suggest you review the MSDS for any potentially hazardous liquids, powders, or gases you are not already familiar with. Our supervisory staff is also available to answer questions pertaining to these types of exposures. We maintain neutralization solution inside the first aid kits. Also, eyewash safety showers are located around the site for first aid flush response to a chemical or contaminant contact incident. They are well maintained and obvious to find inside buildings. Identify the nearest one to you prior to beginning work. In addition to your own first aid kit, we have one in the process building break room, the maintenance shop break room, and in the front office building. Our kits are equipped for a bloodborne pathogens incident. We expect everyone on site to follow universal precaution in the event of such an incident and to report all medical emergencies to the control room to call 911 for assistance. Please keep your own log of all injuries occurring on site to your personnel, including first aid only cases. In the event of any on-site medical emergency, contact the plant control room to dial 911 for health assistance. The control room staff will coordinate all communications during a site emergency by phone and radio. Primary, the county frontage road at the arrow signs near the front Alcorn sign. Secondary, the end of the rail spur by the main DME line. Upon hearing the evacuation signal or order, if you can, shut off nearby running machines or equipment and grab a coat as you proceed to the nearest exit. Make sure those occupants you are responsible for are also vacating the premises as instructed during the pre-work meeting. As your employees arrive at the meeting spot, a lead person must take a head count. If anyone is unaccounted for, a plant emergency response team member must be immediately told the following: identification of specialty workers outside your normal crew, identifying anyone needing immediate or special medical attention. Do not attempt to return to the building for any reason until the all clear signal has been given by our site supervisory staff. When evacuating, remember to remain calm and quiet. Don't run, scream, or create panic. Assist site occupants, especially those with hearing impairments or physical limitations. Be alert for incoming emergency personnel. When a severe weather announcement is made, shut down any machines or tools you are running. Proceed to the nearest bathroom. Assist others who need help. Lead people take a head count. Remain inside the shelter area until the all clear sign has been given by our site supervisory staff. Battery-powered emergency lights will come on to help you find your way out of buildings or to a restroom shelter should a power failure occur. Your staff should also maintain a working flashlight in nearby work areas for help during power outages. All contractors and associated workers must submit a written report to Alcorn Management within 24 hours of all incidents and accidents, including near misses occurring on site, using our incident report form. In the absence of a completed form or incident report, we will conduct our own investigation and bill back to the incident-involved parties the costs associated with our efforts. We will require your company's participation and cooperation with our formal incident investigation process should a site mishap occur involving your workers. Depending on the level of involvement in the incident reported, your workers may be required to complete a post-drug and alcohol test. Always maintain and have available accurate and current company accident incident history records for review if needed. You must obtain written approval from Alcorn Management prior to bringing any large equipment onto the site. Only authorized and experienced individuals with documented proof of training for the type of equipment being operated may use rolling stock on this site. Those responsible for the equipment being used are also responsible for any damage to road, surfaces, structures above or below ground, and utilities resulting from use of the equipment. Prior to digging, our supervisory staff must first be notified so an underground check can be completed. They will only okay the excavation work once a successful check has been completed. Any hole or pit created inside or outside a site building must be properly protected at the end of the shift and not left open and unprotected. If you create it, you secure it. Use delineation posts, cones, flags, barrels, caution tape, and or solid barriers for securement of a controlled access zone work area with the potential to cause injury to other occupants if left openly accessible by those creating the exposure. Those working around mobile earth-moving equipment must wear a Class 2 or 3 high-visibility garment as specified by ANSI and the Minnesota State PPE statute. High-voltage electrical equipment contains warning stickers signifying shock potential, and an arc flash exposure exists for those nearby. Only qualified and authorized personnel may work with or in close proximity to site electrical equipment. Electrical equipment cords, cables, wires, and plugs must be properly grounded when energized. Use only undamaged and untaped cords and cables, protected from vapors, liquids, or dust, in a position that does not present a trip hazard to occupants. Elevated work activities require fall protection that meets OSHA and ANSI standards. If working above 4 feet, safety railings and a tow board are needed. Without railings, a fall protection system is required, including a properly anchored and tied off full body harness and safety lanyard. Going up and down a ladder once to do a single activity, like opening or closing a valve, does not require fall protection. If, however, the ladder is to be used for sustained work activity, a full fall protection system is required. Match the correct size and type ladder for each job. They should be tied or held up, guided, blocked, or barricaded from passers-by if utilized in an accessway or high-activity areas where they could be displaced. Lay ladders down flat and out of the way when not in use. Only well-maintained non-conductive ladders can be used at this site. Fire prevention and controlling possible ignition sources is extremely important to this operation. Proper bonding and grounding of containers, vessels, tanks, and equipment is a must wherever flammable or combustible liquids are stored, mixed, transferred, and dispensed. Explosion-proof equipment, lighting, and electrical fixtures and spark-resistant tools must be used where ignitable liquids, vapors, fumes, mists, or dusts is present. Only intrinsically safe tools and equipment with non-conductive handles and components can be used here. Containers with ignitable residue, soiled rags, absorbents, or filters inside should be non-combustible metal with a clip-down self-closing lid. Along with miscellaneous wood, paper, cardboard, and cloth materials, they should also be kept away from possible ignition sources. They should not be kept closer than 3 feet from electrical equipment, and they should be removed into outside metal dumpsters or off-site whenever possible to maintain low site fire loading. Bulk fuel and process tanks must always be left safe and secure, with controlled access maintained. Contact site supervisory staff for guidance and authorization to work with this equipment. Regardless of size, when not in use, cylinders of compressed gas should be secured upright with a chain or unignitable tie-down, or within a rack with the proper valve cover. They should always be maintained at least 20 feet away from other flammable or combustible gases or liquids, unless separated by a 5-foot-high fireproof barrier or maintained on a welding cart. You are expected to have your own portable fire extinguishers on site to address any fire-related issues that may result from your work. You are also expected to be able to quickly find a site portable fire extinguisher as well. They are brightly marked and located throughout the operation. Never obstruct access or cover an extinguisher. Remember the acronym PASS when you must use one in an emergency. Fire suppression and detection equipment and alarm impairments are always limited to the shortest duration possible. A fire watch may be required to continue work in an area during impairments. Hot work permits. Our hot work policy will regulate any work that has the potential to create open flames, sparks, or ignition sources for product or materials in the vicinity of a contractor's work area. Prior to hot work, ensure the work area is free from potentially ignitable vapors and maintain a 50-foot hot work secure area immediately around and below the hot work area. Check with our operations manager to ensure air testing is done prior to beginning work. Monitor the air no more than a half hour prior to work. Confirmation of hot work requirements and air testing results must be completed before work begins. Contact the plant manager, operations manager, or our maintenance manager to determine if a hot works permit is required. They are to be completed for all cutting and welding done on the property outside of the maintenance and fabrication shops. The permits shall be renewed each shift. It requires at least a 30-minute fire watch beyond the time the following hot work is performed: welding, cutting, torching, grinding, brazing, portable heater use, all spark or flame producing activities. Continuous air monitoring is needed whenever spark or flame producing devices are used. If hot work ceases for more than a half hour, the area must be retested and documented on the permit. To use an air monitor, simply press the on-off button. It may need to warm up for a minute after being turned off for a while. Wait a few minutes for readings to register. Carbon monoxide must read 0. O2 must range between 19.5 and 23%. LEL must be 0. The ammonia level must be 0. Readings must all be acceptable before work can begin. During work, any unacceptable readings require the job to stop and the control room and project lead to be notified. A site supervisory representative will evaluate job situations and direct activities based on circumstances present. Also, ensure area ignitables are protected or covered with a fire blanket or wetted down. Always maintain focus on hot work processes during the job. Contractors are responsible to provide their own adequate fire protection equipment as specified in the hot works permit, not the extinguishers mounted around the plant for general use. Overhead hot work requires fire retardant tarps or blankets under the area to protect personnel and equipment on other levels. Confined space entry. All tanks on site are considered confined spaces, and all confined spaces are considered permit-required confined spaces and labeled as such. Contact the site operations manager or maintenance manager for your job. Never enter into a confined space without a permit and our site supervisory staff's authorization. Be sure to sign in and out of the confined space on the permit. You must have all the equipment necessary and required for safe operation of a permit-required confined space entry procedure, including that necessary to continuously monitor the air inside and outside the space, as well as emergency retrieval and communications equipment. All initial tank or equipment hatch openings must be supervised by our site staff and included on a confined space entry permit. All confined space entry work requires a lockout-tagout permit unless all other equipment and piping has been removed or disconnected from the area being entered. Lockout-tagout. For work requiring energy isolation, every person involved will use a lock and tag, identifying them on all sources of hazardous energy prior to beginning work. A proper lockout will block or de-energize and neutralize all sources of energy. Contact our operations manager and maintenance manager for an authorized lockout-tagout permit and to review with your employees what equipment needs to be de-energized and how this will be accomplished. We use lock boxes on site to control key and lock possession as necessary. You must remove your assigned lock before leaving the property. This means every time you leave every day. Be sure to sign in and out on a lockout-tagout log maintained in the control room. You must be working on the locked out system to be locked onto that system. If the job scope changes and work begins on another locked out system, remove your lock and reapply to the new system as necessary. Sign in and out as well. Remove your lock and sign out if you are leaving the plant. Now that you know our expectations regarding visitors, any violation of site safety, health, and security policies can result in immediate dismissal from the site and disqualification from any future work. All on-site Alcorn employees have the full authority to inform you or any of your employees about any non-compliance activities and to relay any related concerns to our on-site management and supervisory staff. Contact the site operations manager for questions and comments relating to the content of this program. Always work smart, always work safe. Thank you.